Okay. Hello. Hi. Hang on. Let me edit my or fix my audio. Um, it's Blake by himself. This is a solo aside because Trey and Anthony don't listen to Drake, and we're gonna talk about the Drake projects that just came out. So, it's Memorial Day weekend. I have a few beers with me. Hang on. Let me raise this a little bit. See the back of my back of my computer screen. It's a little bit better. Okay, so Drake released 3 projects last weekend. So we have Habib T, I think is the pronunciation, Maid of Honor, and Iceman. Iceman, which was long awaited, long hyped, and 2 basically surprise albums. So I want to talk about the albums, and then I want to talk about kind of Drake as a whole, where he stands, because we're in an interesting spot with Drake, I think. I'm listening to Habib T right now, actually. But let's start with Iceman before we get into the other albums, before we get into Drake as a whole. I'm gonna start with Iceman. Okay, so I actually thought that Iceman started off really slow, which is apparently which is contrary to popular belief. A lot of people think that the first like 6 songs or so are really good and then it kind of dies off. I disagree. I think that it starts off really slow, and then I think around Shebang, track 6 is where it picks up. And I think track 6 through 18 are really good, apart from Little Birdie. I fucking hate this song. I don't know what the hell is going on here. I don't know if this is a rap, if this is a dance song. I don't know what it is. It's repetitive. It's awful. I hate it. I don't like what he's doing with his voice. But I think the rest of the album is actually really, really good, and I think taking 18 tracks, I would say that Iceman did live up to the hype. I will say my favorite song on this album, my favorite song of I think the entire run, is Make Them Remember, which is track 14. If you guys want to go back and listen to it. So it's 5 minutes and 23 seconds. There's no chorus. It's just Drake kind of doing his thing. And there's a certain flow that he establishes here that he didn't establish until I think probably after, if you're reading this is too late. It was probably around the Views era that he started to kind of rap on these types of beats and have this type of flow. And this is really like, out of everything that he's released, it's probably 50 something tracks. This is the best song. And there's just a cadence to what he's doing, a cadence to his rap and his flow that really just sounds so good. It sounds like this is the lane that Drake needs to be in. And he kind of follows it up. Unfortunately, the next song is Little Birdie, which is dog shit. But he goes into Don't Worry, which is a good song, and then he goes into the second best song after that in the album, which is Firm Friends, which is very similar production on it, very similar flow on it. And there's something about Drake with this type of production, this type of beat that's melodic, and he flows really well. His voice works really well with this beat. And I really, really love both of these songs. And I think that Iceman finds a balance of, old Drake and new Drake. And it's kind of this combination of what he used to be, what he is now, what he's going to be. And I know a lot of people complain that the album is, he's too caught up in the beef and the Kendrick beef and the beef with everybody he's had. And I get that. It does get a little bit old, but at the same time, like, as people have said on the internet, if he didn't say anything, people would make a comment about him not saying anything. If he said too much, people would make a comment about him saying too much. And that's just how it goes sometimes with artists like this, and I think the DeMar DeRozan lines that he had were really funny. Just still throwing shots at DeMar DeRozan. I mean, Sacramento Kings, I think he's been through enough. He's on the Sacramento Kings, so it's a tough life for him. Yeah, overall, I think Iceman. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 when I texted some friends of mine about the album. Overall, I think it was solid. I think it was solid, and I think it was a good comeback for Drake after a long hiatus after the beef. I think this is exactly what you can expect from him. Now, there's 2 other albums that came out, so we're gonna go to Maid of Honor first. So, Maid of Honor is I called this the sequel to Honestly Nevermind because it's similar to Honestly Nevermind. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this shit was pretty fucking garbage, man. This is like if Iceman was a 7, this is like a 5. This is like a 5 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10, somewhere in that range. He's just all over the fucking place, man. Like I'm scrolling through and there's a total of 14 songs. I have 7 of them bookmarked, so I have half of them on my liked playlist. And I think he starts with Ho Phase, which is it's a great intro track, which we talk about a lot on this podcast, and it really sets the tone for kind of what this album is going to be. It's not going to be like Iceman. It's not going to be like Habib T, and it's going to be, I don't know, I guess club music is the lane he was going for here. And there's some songs in here that I really like, but man, some of them are just so fucking bad. And it just felt like the album had no fucking direction to it whatsoever. And I think it was kind of a mess top to bottom. There's some stuff in here that I really like to listen to and that I keep coming back to. I think Ho Phase, Road Trips, New Bestie, all good songs that have gotten a decent amount of play for me. Goose and the Juice is, there's a interesting, I don't know how to explain this. This type of beat is like it's like a 2006 it's like a 2006 pop and B song is kind of how I feel about it. It's good for its environment. It's good for its specific energy that it's catering to. But there's just not a lot of replay value on it for me. I feel like, if this were released 6 years, well, that was COVID times 6 years ago. So let's say 8 years ago, if I were in college at the time, I feel like I would have heard this shit everywhere. I feel like I would have heard multiple songs in this track fucking everywhere I went. Every bar I went, every club I went to, I feel like there would be Habibti playing, and I think that's kind of the lane he was going into. There's some good songs. There are some good songs, but as a whole, I think it kind of falls short. But I want to go into Habibti. To me, this is the best song this is the best album out of the 3 albums that he just released. Habibti is right up my fucking alley. It is Drake. It is Drake's version of P&D, Party Next Door, who, if you guys have listened to the podcast, if you guys know anything about it, you guys know I'm a big P&D fan. I fucking love P&D, and there's a P&D song on here, Fort Worth, which I really like. Amanda hates it. She hates the whole album. It's too slow for her, which I understand. It is very slow music, but this is R&B Drake. And I really like the fact that Iceman is a hip hop rap album. Maid of Honor is a club album, if you want to call it that. And then Habibti is an R&B album. I think it works really well releasing all 3 of those at the same time and kind of having a different choice you can choose, right? What type of Drake you like, you can listen to this album or this album or this album. But Habibti is really good, man. This is right up my alley. I love slow R&B, sad boy shit. I love hearing Drake sing. I think it's really this lane for me is really what works for Drake, and that's kind of those songs I highlighted on Iceman. That's a similar vibe to this album, and I think it's just this is kind of where I feel like he belongs, and I know he doesn't want to belong in this lane, and he wants to be a rapper, and he wants to kind of rap and write with the best of the rappers out there. But I kind of wish he would lean more into music like Habibti. And there's 11 songs on this album. The first track doesn't really count as a track, it's an intro, and I have 9 of them bookmarked. So it's basically a 10-track album. I have 9 of them bookmarked. I think this is a great fucking album. And I told my friend Tamayan, shout out to Tamayan, he's a big hip hop head, and he's been back and forth with Drake, and he said if these Drake projects sucks, suck. He's done with Drake. It's over, and his fandom is over. And I told him, just work through Iceman, push through Maid of Honor because you're not gonna like it, and then go to Habibti. And Habibti is where you're really gonna find kind of what you like from Drake. And he agreed it was the best project out of the 3 that came out. And this is I don't know, it's just overall it's just good. It feels like winter music. It's like everybody has summer albums, summer songs, summer this that. This is a nice album for just cruising around, getting in your feels a little bit. So all in all, I mean, I gave Habibti, I think, a 9 out of 10, Iceman a 7, and then Maid of Honor a 5. So as a whole, decent projects. But I want to talk about Drake for a second and kind of where he is in his career and with these releases. And I think there's an interesting, hang on, let me take a sip. There's an interesting dynamic happening right now with Drake where it becomes a popular thing to dislike what is popular. And that's how the internet works right now. And that's kind of how the internet has always worked, right? There have been times where I loved a show or I loved a movie or I loved an album, and I go, Eminem releases an album, I go on the Eminem subreddit and everybody fucking hates it. Or, I watched True Detective season 4. I love True Detective season 4, and I go on the True Detective subreddit and everybody fucking hates True Detective season 4. And, this is the thing that happens, like with pop culture in general. The negative voices are amplified a lot higher than the positive voices. And Drake is kind of in this lane where he's gotten so popular and everything with the beef with Kendrick that it's become the cool thing to dislike Drake. And that's been a running bit with myself for a long time. And I admit that. I think it's funny. I still think it's funny, and I'll probably still continue the bit despite the fact that I do enjoy some of Drake's music. But it's just at the point now where before this, he released his 3 albums at midnight, and at midnight 07 or midnight 12, there's people talking about how dog shit the albums are and the projects are, and Drake is, and Drake's washed and he lost the beef and blah 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 blah. And it's just, there's a mentality that is formulated with Drake where he can't really seem to get ahead of that and get ahead of himself. And it's really interesting to me because he held down our generation, really millennials and Gen Z, for 10 summers. Like, it was literally 2014 to 2024. All you heard was fucking Drake, whether you liked it or not. And that speaks to the caliber of artist that he is, whether he was writing his own music or whether you enjoyed it. Everybody has a Drake song they know. Everybody has a Drake song they like. And it felt like in one summer, all of a sudden that was just thrown out the window because it became the cool thing to be anti-Drake and to be pro-Kendrick, right? You couldn't be both, and you had to pick one or the other. And it was just kind of the internet's thing of, well, now we dislike Drake. And I feel like that's super, it was just that whole energy around that beef was super weird to me. And it was just weird to me that people that I knew loved Drake, all of a sudden acted like they never did. And they were always huge Kendrick fans. And Kendrick has done this and that. And look, if you want to talk about Grammys, that's fine. You could talk about Grammys. If you want to talk about, record plays or radio plays, you can't deny the fact that Drake is this behemoth, right? He's an economy. Anywhere he goes, any song he puts out, any track that he's on is going to be the next big thing. And it's just like how Lil Wayne was. People my age, if you're listening to this, you're probably in your late 20s, early 30s, right? You guys remember how Lil Wayne was in that time period when we were in high school, where anything Lil Wayne did, it was a hit. And Drake did that, but he took it so much further and he went so much longer, right? Wayne had that 4-year run. Drake had like a 10-year run. I remember when Drake played Coachella, that set list, there's a moment in that set during Coachella where he says, he's talking about, hits that he could play. And he says, I got 1,000 of these motherfuckers. Like, I could do this shit all fucking night. And that was back when he only had 4 albums at that point. That was right after, if you're reading this, it's too late. And he was right, because those projects just produced hit after hit after hit. And I remember everybody being in love with Drake. And it's just a weird feeling to know that all of a sudden it's the cool thing to not be a Drake fan. And now everybody wants to pretend like they weren't. And I think that puts him in a precarious situation, because he has to find a way to balance that. I think with Iceman in particular, as time goes on, we will look back and realize that this was a good album, right? But nobody wants to admit that right now, because we're still fresh off of a beef, and we're still fresh off of, I have to pick sides, right? It's become a political thing to say, I do or don't like this person. And looking back 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, people are going to look on this album a lot more fondly than they do right now. And I think that's really kind of an interesting dynamic, and an interesting like character study almost, to see how we're influenced by just culture in general and the zeitgeist and what everybody else is saying. And I think that it's really weird to me, you know, with Rick Ross and with Future, right? Future and Drake have an album together, and Future did an album with Metro Boomin, where the entire premise of the album was shitting on Drake and getting people to come on this album to shit on Drake. And they were good friends. And there's a line from Family Matters where he says, Pluto shit made me sick to my stomach. We ain't never really been through it, right? Because they were close forever. And then it seemed like 4 years passed, and now Future's on Iceman. And it's no big deal, right? Everything's kosher. Everything's good. Like, we're fine. And it just seemed like there were people like Rick Ross and Future and Metro Boomin and The Weeknd that kind of made their careers off the back of Drake and Features. Not that they didn't have their own projects and own success, and Future is a legend in his fucking own right, and Future didn't need Drake. I'm not saying that he did. Future's amazing. I love him. I fucking rinse him almost as much as I probably rinse J. Cole. I listen to him all the time. But they had this dynamic, and it was like, when it was beneficial to Future, it was fun to shit on Drake. And then now he's back on a song with Drake, and it was like, we just all kind of threw it by the wayside. I just find that energy really weird. And there, you know, Rick Ross had made comments after that whole thing. I mean, Rick Ross, he made a ton of streams, a ton of music, a ton of monetization off of songs that he was on with Drake. And, you know, he was involved in that, and then afterwards made comments like, I want the best for him, I hope he succeeds. Well, then why would you fucking be involved in this to begin with? Like, it seemed like the popular thing to do at the time. And I think that speaks to the level of superstardom that Drake is at, that you kind of live and die, whether you're associated with him or not, by his success, right? You can make a career off of making fun of Drake. You can make a career off of riding Drake's coattails, whatever it is. And we're just at an interesting spot in Drake's career. And I don't know if he's going to retire. And I think, you know, he could have and probably should have retired after Scorpion. I love Scorpion. I know that's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people disagree with that. I think Scorpion is a great album. And I think, you know, after Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, if you're reading this, it's too late. That's a perfect 3-album run for Drake. And if he had ended his career back then, it would have been perfect. But obviously, Views is monumental. It's one of the only albums to sell 1 million copies in a week. Carter 3 is up there as well. It has a fucking trillion streams. Who knows how many it has now, you know? And he leaned into some different roots and found a different style. And I think he kind of leans into that style a little bit on Iceman. I don't know. You know, I think they're good albums, and it's just interesting. You know, I find myself coming back to Iceman a lot. Like, since it came out, there's that run, track 7 to 18. Like, I throw it on shuffle and just listen to it. And yeah, look, it may not have a ton of substance. It may not have all these amazing things to say, but at the end of the day, like, he's good at what he does. He's good at rapping. He has great production, and you have to call a spade a spade. I know it's cool to say that Drake sucks, and I understand that, but you know, it's funny. I saw a meme that was like, Iceman's really good when you don't have some cornball in your ear telling you it sucks. And that's the reality, right? If you can go into it objectively and listen to it and push through those first 6 tracks, which I think are kind of a slog, then I think you're in for a really, really good ride. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get on here and talk about Drake and these albums and kind of where he's at. And I don't know. I hope you guys listened to it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I don't know. What are your thoughts? You can share your thoughts. You can comment on this. You can tag us on Instagram. You can do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to listen, or if you fucking hate Drake and I'm wrong and you want to tell me it sucks, then tell me that too. I rambled on for about 20 minutes, so I think it's pretty much all I had to say. I think it's good. Yeah, go listen to it. We have an episode coming out soon. We're doing The Slow Rush by Tame Impala and Only God Forgives, another Ryan Gosling movie. So that'll be coming up soon. Listen to that. I hope you guys enjoy. If you haven't, go listen to Iceman. At least if you're not going to listen to anything else, depends on your vibe, right? You want R&B vibes, go listen to Habibti. You want rap, go listen to Iceman. If you want some club bangers, you're going on a summer trip, you're going on your first summer trip, then go listen to Maid of Honor. Maybe you'll find some shit in there that I looked over and didn't like, and you can tell me, hey, this song actually is really good. But anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed my ranting, and we'll see you guys soon.